Hey, Christopher, what's going on?
Oh, it's been a fascinating week, David, and I'm glad to see that you're on the rebound. You were having a couple of days there where the old body was not being fully proficient for you. So, how are you feeling tonight?
I'm getting there. For those that don't know, my Saturn return's happening this week. So for me, I have a lot of amazing things happening. Saturn is such a weird planet, isn't it? It'll build you the corporation, and it will give you the CEO title, and it will do these amazing things. There's a lot of bruises to get there. I mean, that goat doesn't make it to the top of that mountain without some bruises and cuts. And it's interesting that I've reached a very important aspect in my life, but here I am kind of in my body and even in my soul starting to accept now the bruises. It's like once you get to the destination, you have to kind of start to brush yourself off. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, yeah, and it's a time for an evaluation. Whenever you've traveled any distance, especially one that involves height, gaining altitude, you do have to stop and check your bearings and get a sense of where you're at in relationship to where you were and where you want to ultimately end up. So, and Saturn is always very generous in its lessons because it is the great teacher. It does give us a lot of insight and ultimately empowerment. But like you said, it likes to slap you upside the head every once in a while.
Yeah, and this hasn't been a bad slap in the head. I could see if I was very unconscious of the situation, how I could throw myself off the handle, which I think some people are doing right now. I mean, here you and I are talking as we're stepping into this new week, and we have a Mars-Venus square in very intense, passionate signs, Leo and Scorpio. And this is such a dynamic week we are coming to step into, as the moon's going to come in the last, quarter of its whole cycle this week. We're really building up this pressure of Mars and Venus, the masculine, the feminine energy. The Libra energy is starting to get ready to come into its T-square with Uranus and Pluto. Uh, what a crazy week we just went through, right?
Oh, absolutely, and it's going to get even more bizarre, I think, this coming week. Number one, like you had mentioned, we do have a waning moon, and that means that ultimately it will go dark, and the dark of the moon is when we just need to be still and experience things. But as people are watching this video, we have the moon that has moved into the sign of Cancer, and there it will be joining Jupiter and interacting with things that are going on in Scorpio as well as Mars and Leo. So a lot of immediate kind of dynamic energy going on because the moon is moving fast. And as it accelerates through each different sign, it's 2.5, 3 days through each sign. And what happens is it really pulls everything up to immediacy, and we do have to stop and evaluate and figure out where we're going with things. So, big week coming up, absolutely.
Yeah, and we're teed up this weekend, like you say, with the moon in Cancer, and it's going to square Pluto, and it's going to oppose Pluto. It's going to square Uranus, and I think this is a powerful weekend as Pluto has now gone direct, and it's starting to gain ground again. And here's the moon going to oppose things. And I think we have felt the aftermath of such a powerful Pluto direct motion as it's connected with Saturn here in Scorpio. And these two planets are coming out of their shadow periods. Pluto went retrograde at 11 degrees, and Saturn went retrograde at 11 degrees. And now they're both at this 9 position. And they're trying to get out of their shadow period, and it's karmically connected with so much that's happening in our life right now, this weird space, and the moon taps over this weekend, and in many ways we kind of want to shelter ourselves, find that cozy, comfortable spot, but there's so much weirdness happening right now in the sky. There's so much inner work that is happening, and this has to deal with karma. This has to deal with the aspects of where you've put yourself in your life and what you've gone through, and kind of the weeding out of this energy. So I think it's important to find a way to find comfort this weekend, but at the same time, this is strength that must be found, and it's the expanding of these emotions, I think, that are kind of teaching us to maybe make better plans for our life, to step more into the life we want. And this is also the last weekend of Mercury in Libra, which Mercury in Libra is trying to weigh every little thing out. Where I think when Mercury comes into Scorpio this next week, things get, I think, a little bit easier to deal with. Mercury does pretty good in Scorpio, gets right to the point to things. And I think that's what's making things a little bit weird here is this weekend, we're at this intense, weighing out of all this stuff in our life.
Oh, absolutely. And one of the things that happens whenever Mercury or Venus or Mars, the closer planets to our planet Earth, whenever they're moving through the latter degrees of a sign, it intensifies things because it's like catch-up time. So as Mercury hits those final couple of degrees in Libra, it is really going to intensify that nitpicking kind of energy. And you may notice that people are snapping at you. You may notice that people are feeling overwhelmed with information overload, that sort of thing. Because Mercury, while it is very much aligned with all three air signs, it also gets a lot of juice from being in an air sign. So it's like Mercury on steroids for a couple of days here until it finally flips over into Scorpio and calms down a little bit.
That always happens with Mercury. And in Libra, just weighing everything out. And we've got this Mars-Venus square, which this weekend really is triggered because it's starting to become exact. And it's interesting as Jupiter starts to trine Venus. So what a weird alignment to bring up, right? I mean, usually when you deal with Jupiter and Venus, you've got this really explosive, very optimistic power. And I think there is a two-sided fence here that we go through this weekend. And it all has to do with, relationships, our value systems, what we're manifesting in our life. I think a lot of this has to do with, are we manifesting from this root Scorpio truth, this deep, aspect, which in many ways it is a water sign and it is the most intense of the water signs, depending on what you look at intensity. I would think that the other ones are very intense too. But, this is dealing with more rooted aspects, this hidden aspect of our life. And with Mars and Leo, which is a very outer expression of our happiness and our love and, and also frustrations that I think can be building all this. This is that snappiness you bring up really kind of coming out, and with Jupiter on the other end, like exploring this area, because it actually is in a very weird position with Mars as well. Jupiter and Mars, are at a 30-degree angle. This is a weird position with past life relationships, current relationships, and whether or not, I called it putting your money where your mouth is like, are you really manifesting what you're going for in your life? Is this coming together? I think this could be kind of the kink in the hose for those to kind of show people, hey, you're on the wrong track. Like, this is not manifesting. Move on to what will work in your life. I think it could be a harsh reality in relationships that get kinked because guess what? That's not the one that really is based off this truth or these passions. It's very weird.
Well, it's definitely a very powerful set of positions, absolutely. And of course, whenever the sun moves into Libra, and it will be 4 degrees Libra when people are listening to this, that's when there is a highlight. That's the sun is like the spotlight going across the stage, and all the different sections of the zodiac are associated with different aspects of our life and our personal experience through the material world. So right now, it's all about 7th house stuff. It is Libra time, and relationships are what we are looking at, and really trying to get away from analyzing them, which is what Libra likes to do, and actually jump into the hot tub and experience them and feel them. So you've got Mars, as you said, in Leo, and it is in a positive sextile energy with the sign of Libra. So people are wanting to feel a deeper level of passion. They're wanting to be vulnerable. They're wanting to give themselves an allowance, a go-ahead signal to go ahead and immerse in whatever it is that has caught their attention. And it's going to be kind of fun watching how some people will make their relationship really blossom. It'll come to a higher level. over about the next 25 days while the sun is making this journey through Libra. Other people will come to the conclusion that this is just absolutely not for me, and they'll pull the plug on it. So yeah, we are going to see these two extremes going on because, again, we've got Venus moving through Scorpio and then getting ready to move into Sagittarius, and it loves to travel when it's in Sagittarius. So a lot of energy shifts over the next 7 days.
Yeah, and this actually brings me back. I'm a crazy astrologer, so I've done the astrology on every most important moment in my life, you know. And one of the biggest moments of my life happened on a Mars-Venus square, and it was actually on a New Year's Eve. But it's interesting that this also, on the other flip side of the coin, on the very positive side of the coin, gosh, this can be some passionate energy. This, when put to the test, when kind of directed in the correct energy that you should align with, wow, there is a huge steam pot full of passion waiting for you. And it could be challenging to get there. Sometimes we got to go through some sort of challenge to get there, or some sort of unwanted circumstance which behind the curtain really brought us to the energy that is to this powerful steam pot, or this powerful energy of passion. Because Leo and Scorpio are such passionate signs. Mars and Venus, very passionate planets. And, you know, it's interesting to see as Mars and Venus make this perfect square this weekend. This is also when the moon passes over Jupiter that's connected with this and all this on Saturday. Like, I'd really pay attention to Saturday because I think there's some sort of clues that are being unlocked. And the last time that Mars and Venus were in conjunction, which you always have to do this in a weird way. This is the first time that Mars and Venus are doing their first quarter square. So you got to go back to the actual conjunction, which happened in Aries. We were actually doing the show then, and that was in April. And that was kind of the seed being sent in our relationships, the kind of partnerships we want, the identification of them. And now I think those are being put up to the test. So whether or not they're partnerships from April, or whether or not they fit the core identity of the kind of partnerships or role in partnerships you're looking for, I think it's important to pay attention to that time period. And that was also when Pluto went retrograde, and how funny we have Pluto going direct here at the same time. So I don't think it's a coincidence.
No, it absolutely isn't. This whole dance that's going on in the heavens is a beautifully orchestrated panorama of the interior journey that we're all experiencing. And our spirituality is definitely reflected back to us by every element in nature. You go out into the woods, you go to the mountaintop, you go to the ocean, and you discover a part of yourself that you had forgotten about. And it's reflected back to you. It reawakens in your own consciousness. And the alignment that is going on in the heavens gives us some suggestions and some options with which to address our own personal expression on this material world, and it also gives us that option to get a vision of what the future's potential is. You know, we're scripting the story, but there is options that will show up, or there are options that will show up that are going to, if you're aware of them, they're going to give you a much more heightened, pleasurable experience. And, you know, the other thing I'm looking at right now is as the sun is continuing to make its journey through Libra here, it is going to be interactive with Uranus in Aries. And the sun always energizes. It feeds life force. It feeds vitality and energy into any aspect it's making. And as it hits this oppositional position with Uranus, it is definitely going to bring in that serendipitous kind of energy into our lives. There are going to be sudden shifts. There are going to be sudden awakenings. There could be sudden confrontations. You know, it's all in how you are working with the energy, channeling the energy, and hopefully bringing it into manifestation in a loving and heart-based fashion. Because as soon as Uranus gets supercharged, it's going to, you know, set off. It's going to fire off that activity and with Pluto and Capricorn. So a lot of fireworks this coming week for people.
Oh, big time, because Mercury comes into Scorpio at the same time this weekend, as we end into Sunday energy. Mercury in Scorpio, which it doesn't mess around. I think it's going to be the radar that we need to see things a little bit more clearly with and get down to this raw energy. And it's going to be coming, through this whole week into that Saturn North Node conjunction. And this is, again, really looking at this core energy of, seeing kind of the behind the curtain in your own life, that raw passion, and you bring up as the sun is going to come and start to square Pluto at the beginning of this week and oppose Uranus, which this Pluto-Uranus square is getting closer again, which we kind of had a little bit of a break. And here it is coming back, really shaking things up in people's lives. This is shaking up people's plans. This is shaking up people's, strengths, identities. And it's interesting that on Monday we have the Moon and Mars meet up in Leo. And the Moon, comes into Leo at the end of this weekend. But it's interesting that you see it at the beginning of this week with a Moon-Mars conjunction, this real powerful energy coming in. And then on top of that, you've got Mercury now in Scorpio, which adds to the intensity. And if you look at the planets, everything's in cardinal or fixed signs. The only planet in a mutable sign now is Neptune in Pisces. And so this is dealing with intense energies. There's not much looseness around. You're dealing with people's stubborn energies. You're dealing with people's identities. You're dealing with people's egos. You're dealing with energies people want. You've got Mars and Venus in a square, which this is the masculine and feminine energies, battling it out. And that's inside of all of us. This is dealing, and it's so interesting that the only place that there's this mutable sign is Pisces and in Neptune over there, which I think no matter with what's ever going on, Neptune's starting its almost stationary position as it's starting to slow down. And there's got to find some sort of compassion at the end of this road. I think that's the real lesson to all this, to not get lost in the fog either. I think there's a lot of people lost. That's that Neptune energy getting slow, and it's teaching people that no matter how hard the work is, no matter what crazy crap's going on in your life, you still have to find a spiritual center. And things could take people off their spiritual center course this week. And I think part of that weird lesson in Neptune and Pisces is to not lose that.
Oh, absolutely. And also we've got Chiron in Pisces. So
yeah,
we do have the option of healing, not only our wounds, but the wounds of our ancestors and the wounds of our future ancestors. Because every time we do, in fact, make an adjustment and extend ourselves with a compassionate and empathetic kind of approach to life, what will happen is it does affect a multitude of different generations, and in many ways it collapses time. It brings the past closer to the present and it resolves things that are still unrealized in the future. So yeah, we've got a lot of that dynamic going on. And Libra, of course, is the scales, trying to balance all of its energies. So with the action happening in Libra right now, we're going to see more and more the intensity of this need to resolve and to come to a point of acceptance of what has been, and then be able to release it. And as you said, we've got the moon journeying toward that mystical union with the sun. We'll have that new moon coming up this week. And again, in that Libra sign, it is going to be very much affected by Mars in Leo, which is, again, that's tight sextile, and good old Jupiter in Cancer. We've got some edgy energy going on there. So interesting week and a lot of rebirthing kind of energy coming up.
Yeah, it's funny that you say rebirthing. As I'm sitting here imagining the cocoon we're all sitting in, that I feel our heads are starting to get poked out here. But I think it's going to happen when the eclipses start. We are getting close to the eclipse season again as the sun's traveling through Libra, getting closer to that North Node in Scorpio. And it's crazy to start to see that the Sun squares Pluto this week. This is going to be facing fears. I hate to say it. I was born with a Sun-Pluto square. And Libra, what is it? It needs happiness. It needs compassion. It needs people. It needs others. And Pluto's in Capricorn's rough, saying you need to go on the trail. And the Sun's opposing Uranus during all this, which is this need for individual freedom, this need to find your own courage on your own and find new ways to find it. And the Sun in Libra kind of wants to like grab the person next to them and close their eyes on the scary roller coaster ride. But that could be not so easy as said as done. I think that in many ways, not literally, but spiritually, our souls are having to go through this on its own and have to face the fears to test whether or not this happiness or this harmony in life can be found, whether or not your plans are on track, whether or not you have the courage in your life to step into this harmony. It's in many ways, I hate to say it, sometimes courage and strength kind of pushes you into harmony. United States was not built off much harmony. I hate to say it, but it was also a necessary, I don't want to say evil, but a necessary action that took place to bring that balance and harmony. And that's what I think the Sun goes through this week, and then it's getting ready for the eclipse season, because the next full moon is a lunar eclipse, and that's going to happen in Libra Aries. And then we got a solar eclipse happening in Scorpio. So this is also the buildup of a new moon, which is happening in the middle of the craziness.
Yeah, and one of the things I think that a lot of this is going to highlight for us is that tendency, the very human tendency to pass judgment, because again, that's the inclination of Libra energy, is to assess things and come up with an outcome, which is the act of judging. And then we go back to the wisdom of Solomon and how he dealt with having to deal with making judgment when he was given the two women who were claiming this one child, and he said, well, here, let me cut the kid in half, and the two of you can share the child that way. And the one woman immediately relented, and that was the way that he was able to establish who the actual mother was, because she would rather give up the child than to see the child destroyed. So it may come up to that kind of experience for us, where we reveal the truth of our attachments to things, our investment in people, by having to give up, by being at that point and saying, okay, I'll let go, I'll move on. I don't want to see this person injured. I don't want to see this person damaged or destroyed. And that act in itself is what reveals our true nature and our true intention. And that's how profound healing can occur. So we've got a little bit of that Solomon wisdom going on while the Sun is in Libra here for us.
It's a great way to look at it. I mean, this moon, as it gets dark, is going to be not an easy one to deal with. As the moon comes into Libra, that late Thursday, as we end our shows, right? And then we get ready for you guys on Friday. It's a new moon on Friday. And this new moon doesn't happen till 11 degrees, which means the darkness of this moon happens in a Pluto-Uranus square. So it could really be testing inside, because this all does square Pluto. And this tests whether or not you can make the investments in your journey, whether or not you have the power or the strength in yourself. It tests that. It also tests, all this alignment in Scorpio. Mercury and the node and Saturn all start to conjunct during all this. This is an intense week, and I would really, I'd really find the strength in yourself this week and find out the right connections. But also, I'm going to just say it, that you cannot rely on just these connections only in your life, you know, that you're going to also have to find that there's a connection in yourself, and that you're going to have to overcome fears, you know, in your own
Mm-hmm.
life in order to find that harmony. That sometimes harmony isn't what a lot of people think it is. I say this in a lot of readings to people who have a lot of seventh house energy or Libra energy is, you know, sometimes people can think that, you know, the marriage to this person, or it leads to a marriage of whatever connection that is, whether it's physical, emotional, or anything, that sometimes that you find connection outside of yourself to find your self-gratification, which this is the complete opposite of that energy that kind of challenges you to have your own destiny, that challenges you to have your own identity, your own purpose, and that let's say that relationship doesn't work out, or that connection, or Starbucks stops making that coffee that you rely on in the morning. What do you do? And
Right.
I think people could find themselves in those predicaments this week as Mars squares Venus, and the Libra energy, I'm going to be honest, goes into hurricane force winds and has to rely on itself, you know?
Yes. Yeah, it's very much the way things are going to play out. And the other thing that is all about integrity. You know, having the integrity to hold your convictions and to challenge yourself about your convictions is definitely going to be a part of the drama this week. And so it is going to be a very self-revelatory week. We will discover things about ourselves that we were wanting to ignore or failing to acknowledge. And so again, the journey, it appears that the journey is going on outside us. It appears that the journey is in the world around us. But the actual truth of the journey is it's the interior journey that we are having that is being reflected in the exterior world, that the whole process, the whole universe is trying to get us to pay attention to and to examine. Well,
Let me just say one more thing, and then we'll go to the cards. It just came to me because your integrity line was the most beautiful line of the night. That this does test the integrity of others. It tests the true lion's heart. It tests whether you're the dark lion or the good lion. It also tests the Scorpio side. It tests how you use that stinger, or whether or not you use it correctly. You know, the eagle. You know, there are two sides of Scorpio, the eagle and the scorpion. There are those that'll fly, and there are those that will sting. There are those in the Leo energy that are going to be pure of heart, and then there are those that can go dark in heart. And so I think that you nailed the head on the nail on the head with, I think the end-all be-all in the astrology of this week is the integrity of your inner journey and how you reflect it externally.
Yeah, that absolutely is the way that it's going to play out. And you may discover things about yourself that may be a little bit embarrassing, but that brings you up to the next step, which is self-forgiveness. And that's always a great place to arrive at, is when you can finally get there and say, oh, I really blew it on that occasion, but in truth, I can forgive myself. I can forgive the other players on the field and advance now with a feeling of reestablished integrity. So we're starting off here with the Friday, Saturday, Sunday events with a good old Wheel of Fortune. I love this card. This is destiny, destino, the things that you are supposed to experience, the events you're supposed to participate in are going to be very much at your doorstep this weekend. So don't run away and hide. This is not a good time to move into a state of avoidance. You can move through, you can penetrate, and come out on the other side having gained a lot of insight and a lot of self-awareness as you move through this weekend and the intensity of these planetary alignments David and I have been talking about. The next card, as we move into that Sunday, Monday, Tuesday energy, is the Moon card. A lot of stuff is going to be coming to the surface, and you are going to be in a very reflective mode and be thinking about things from the past and perhaps contemplating what you want for the future. This is also a card that I think has a tremendous impact when you stop and think about relationships, because even though we have these relationships in our lives and we imagine that we know people intimately, that we have this insight about people, the reality is that you know as much about virtually everybody in your life as you know about the dark side of the moon. So when you have a judgment against somebody, when you have that opinion that this person is dark or this person is evil or whatever, you're just simply seeing a part of the reality that your mind doesn't want to accept. You're looking at part of this person that you don't know. So it's not about good, bad, right, wrong. Anything that reflects the reality gets you back into the game and gets you into trouble. So you just have to look at things without judgment. And the first part of next week is a time to be non-judgmental and to trust your intuition. Midweek, we're going to have a little bit of relief. We've got the Nine of Pentacles. Things should settle down a little bit on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And again, that probably is in association with the passage of the moon as it moves through Virgo. Virgo is a nice grounded energy, so all the erratic energy that's going on out there is going to calm down a little bit while the moon makes that transit through the Earth sign. But by the end of the week, you are going to have to make judgment calls. You are going to have to make decisions. You're either going to have to advance or retreat, and there's no in between. You know, this is the Two of Swords. The two extremes are there, and you're having to confront them. So by the end of the week, and with the new moon, a lot of that type of energy where it's like I'm either 100% in or 100% out. And we finally end up with that new moon, the cycle of renewal that comes up next Friday, Saturday, Sunday, with a lot of our own intuitive psychic abilities kind of going through a spike. So pay attention to your dreams, pay attention to emotional responses. If the hair on the back of your neck stands up when the black cat crosses your path, be mindful of that. You know, don't drive down that street. Go to some other street. Give yourself a little bit of grace.
Wow. A lot of major arcana stuff there. And I think midweek, when you pulled that Pentacles, I think that's the good energy that we do get. But I also think that we have to use that energy correctly. That even though, yes, it gets a little bit of relief, there's something to build on there. There's a lot to release. That the moon's starting to get dark. It's coming into Virgo, and you know, all these energies are really switching up. And I think that moon card with all this Scorpio energy and Mercury coming up, I think we do understand these deep embedded emotional feelings, which Scorpio brings out all of them, whether they're good, bad, ugly, or whatever they are, they're going to come up and they're going to be understood. And remember, Mercury is going to go retrograde in Scorpio. So we're going to be dealing with this Mercury in Scorpio for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because Scorpio is a sign that is probably got the most conviction of any of the signs, at least especially when, you know, everything is enhanced. We have Jupiter in trine. So all of this energy that is going to be going on, it is going to be from that level of absolute, firm, solid conviction. And we're going to have to, you know, test our convictions. Are we convinced of things that are erroneous, or are we convinced of things that are in fact untrue?
Yeah, it's like digging in the sand and picking up the sand crabs. I don't know if you've ever done that, but you know, it looks great on the surface, but when you pull up, you're like, what are all these creepy crawly things under here? And you pull them up, and there's 15 of them. You didn't even realize this. And then there's that. There's all these deep-seated energy, emotionally and spiritually, that we, like you say, part of our convictions. And in many ways, Scorpio can sometimes be that unconscious drive, especially that it's connected with Chiron and Neptune and Pisces, which is more subconscious energy. we
Hmm.
can really pull up, like you say, and expose these truths in ourselves that could be ugly as hell that we don't like, but they also could be positive and life transformational on the other. So I think
Hmm.
this brings these emotions. That moon card I think the moon card probably could be the highlight of everything happening, because this is all leading towards a new moon, and a new moon that's under stress, not typical, positive new moon, one that really challenges you. And so that moon card and that Scorpio energy we just described could be the ticket and the secret to all this.
Oh, it absolutely will be because it's all about Scorpio energy, sex and death, and rock and roll, and then looking at ways to transform ourselves, getting past any sense of regret or self-defeating energies.
I know I gave everybody a little woohoo when you said the sex, rock and roll, and energy, but
Absolutely, that's
uh,
Scorpio.
I do have Saturn and Mars and Scorpio. So,
Mhm.
well,
I wonder what Mick Jagger has in Scorpio because, boy, he is the epitome of that Scorpio energy. He is the rock and roll king.
let's see right now. He was born on July 26th. Um, he has no Scorpio, but he is a Leo with a sun in, or he is a Leo with a moon in Taurus, like me.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, kind of interesting. You know what it is? Is he was born with Jupiter and Pluto conjunct in Leo, conjunct his sun. So he had
Oh,
this, he
wow.
wanted the good
Yeah,
time, which the Leo energy is part of this. I'm going to be honest, part of that sex, drugs, rock and roll energy also goes with Leo. you know.
absolutely, yes. And
And when you add it to the Scorpio, I would know it makes it a little crazy. It's when you start to see the dark side of the kingdom. You know what I mean? You're like, whoa, I didn't know the king did that in the back room. Like, whoa. So, and that was Mick Jagger. He had a lot of, and he had Mars squaring all this too in Taurus.
hmm
So he had the opposite side of it, that Taurus side, which was kind of very stubborn, the very almost maybe like hoarded on to, it had to be a certain way to be fun, you know?
yeah, well, and there's definitely that exuberance and that indulgence.
Yeah, yeah.
Taurus
Because both
loves
sides
to
do
indulge.
indulge. They just do it
Hmm.
differently. Scorpio
Right.
likes to do it in private or inner wise, that you could self-indulge off. I'm gonna be honest. Scorpio's weird. It could be hate. It could be jealousy. It could be seeing somebody lose. And just kind of being like, nobody knows though, because you're feeling it inside. Whereas Taurus kind of has something to prove. Like it wants to show. Well, did you see the house I made? That I got off this? You know what I mean? Did you
Hmm.
see how much money's in my bank account? Like, hello. And then that Leo energy just wants to like be on the stage with it. It's that Capricorn energy that like wants to have the trophy of it all. And I think that we're all there's some trophy we're all going for. And I think that's the secret of this story that's another decade away, is like, what are you really reaching for in all of this? And I think it's connected with the Scorpio energy, which is these hidden truths inside of us of what we all really deeply desire and want. And seeing what that really is, whether it's the weirdest story you've ever heard of. I think it's also the most beautiful, and I think the universe wants to bring that out. So,
Well, I think there's also a certain element of resurrection that is a theme that goes throughout all of these different stories too. So it's sex and death and rock and roll, and then all of a sudden we discover that death isn't real, and sex really doesn't do what we imagine it to do. So all that's left is the music in the background.
that's right. And sex to me really, it isn't physical, it's emotional. It's how deep emotionally can you go to where you reach this level of complete emotional connection? And I think it's that connection emotionally we're all thriving to find. And
Well, and it always produces something.
mhm.
Whether it produces a child, there is always an offspring from a union, and it may be just in any energy form that does not have a body, but there is always something that's produced, which is interesting.
Yes, very, very true. Well, What a great show, and thank you, Christopher, and thank you to everybody for all the support.
It has been a great journey so far, and things are getting better and better, and it's good to see you're back on the upswing. So both of us have had our little bump in the road, and now we're going to be moving toward that favorite time of mine as we move into the solstice era. So getting into winter.
Here we go. Let's see what happens here. I'm predicting some fireworks. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely, but good ones.
Yeah.
It will it will get your butt out there, and you will be dancing in the rain. So it's great chatting with you, David. You have a fantastic weekend.
You too, and I hope people enjoy dancing in the rain, because I do.
Oh yeah.
Bye.
Good night.